For your information, gentlemen, I used to run a business staging dogfights.
Really? Dogfights like Michael Vick?
No, much better than Michael Vick's. I've been to Michael Vick's dogfights. They were lame. Mine had action. Hardcore dog fighting action.
Really?
You know, it taught me a lot about leadership and about running a business. You know, anyway, I was like 28.
That is Kristen Wiig playing Christine O'Donnell, who's gone from absolute nobody to the opening sketch on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, and let's be clear about this. Michael Vick was the best quarterback in football yesterday. 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. If he could turn it around, maybe Christine O'Donnell can as well. Top Line begins right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC's Top Line. I'm Rick Klein.
And I'm Jonathan Carl.
Every day at noon Eastern, we're right here bringing you the latest in politics. It's twitter.com/Rick Klein, twitter.com/John Carl. Mr. Carl, up on the Hill, tell us what's going on, sir.
We'll start it with college try. We have the president and the vice president trying to rally the Ute vote. The president will be out with the Badgers at the University of Wisconsin, the vice president out at Penn State, both tomorrow, both trying to re-energize a critical part of the coalition that elected Barack Obama president. But you know, Rick, it's tougher this time around. The youth vote simply doesn't turn out in midterm elections. And when you're having a hard time looking at a tough job market that college students are looking at now, it's hard to see how energized they'll be about getting out to vote.
How quickly things change is interesting. University of Wisconsin, one of President Obama's last sites of the campaign. He had a huge rally there a week before the election. It'll be interesting to see the visuals tomorrow if he can match that at all. Next up today, it is the ultimate firewall. Bill Clinton barnstormed throughout New England yesterday, in all places in Massachusetts, to try to help Barney Frank, who isn't quite endangered, but is certainly among the Democrats who have strong Republican challengers, surprisingly strong challengers. This is the firewall strategy we're seeing, John. Democrats know if they have any chance of holding the House, they're not going to do it in a big way. They're going to do it at the margins. That means saving some Democrats who may be endangered, kind of that next wave out. If they can hold on to those seats, maybe they've got a shot.
Yeah, and Barney Frank, as you say, certainly not on anybody's list of endangered Democrats, but he saw what happened in January with Scott Brown's victory. He's not taking any chances. Makes sense. And as you say, Democrats know that if they're going to hold the House, it's going to be by 4, 5, 6 seats. That could be considered a huge Democratic victory. Next up, smacking down. This is a fun one, Rick. The World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. The one you may remember had something to do with Linda McMahon back in the day, who was running for Senate in Connecticut for the Republicans. Well, WWE is holding a SmackDown in Connecticut on November 2nd, starting at 6:15 p.m. 6:45 p.m. just 15 minutes before polls close in Connecticut. And take a look at it, Rick. This is the Dead Man, The Undertaker, versus the Big Red Monster Kane in a steel cage match for the World Wrestling Championship. What we're trying to figure out is what's this going to do in terms of turnout in Connecticut.
Nothing says get out the vote like The Undertaker in a steel cage, I think it's fair to say. And finally today, ad hominem, word that the Democrats are setting up a war room to attack Republicans. No surprise there, although it is a little bit earlier than usual to have such strongly worded attacks. We saw a similar strategy by Republicans in 2006 to try to disqualify Democrats. Of course, we know how that one ended. Democrats hoping to have a little more luck with a lot of personal attacks this time around.
That's right. Now let's get right to our guest. That's a perfect segue. We have Chris Van Hollen joining us, congressman from the great state of Maryland, and also the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the one that was charged with building that firewall. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be with you guys.
So I want to, before we get to the races, before we get to politics, let's talk a little substance. We do that occasionally here on Top Line. I wanted to ask you, what is going on? Why the decision not to have the tax vote here on extending the Bush tax cuts? You guys are leaving town with the possibility of a huge tax increase across the board on Americans. And I know you're not going to tell me that the Republicans are holding this hostage, because you guys haven't even brought this up for a vote.
Well, first of all, Rick, we're going to absolutely have a vote before the end of the year when these things expire. And yes, I'm going to tell you what you know very well, which is that Mitch McConnell, who is the Republican leader in the Senate, has made it very clear that he will filibuster and oppose any tax provisions that do not provide a tax break for the folks at the very top. In other words, he would hold hostage tax relief of 98% of the American people until he gets permanent tax breaks for the folks at the very top, even though that would bust another $700 billion hole in our deficit and slow down long-term economic growth and send the message that we are fiscally reckless. That is what he has said, and we'll have to deal with this obviously before the end of the year, one way or another, whether the timing is sooner rather than later. But that is the position that they have taken.
But you guys aren't even trying. I mean, it's hard to say they're holding something hostage when there's not even a move to do it.
Rick, have you guys been
John, actually.
John, have you guys been paying attention to the United States Senate recently? I mean, come on. You
Occasionally,
guys,
yeah.
Bill after bill after bill, the Republicans have filibustered. Let's look at the bill that
we House.
Well, yeah, but in order to get a bill to the president's desk, you obviously need the Senate. I think most people realize that you got to have the House pass it, the Senate pass it, and the president sign it for something to happen. Look, we just spent months trying to get the small business lending bill out of the House and the Senate, something that Republicans say they're for. It took a long time to get the votes out of the Senate. Finally, we had one Republican senator, Senator Voinovich of Ohio, who's retiring and said, hey, you know what, guys? We shouldn't be playing politics with something so important to the American people. So that took months to do. So let's not kid ourselves with the American people. We know that when Mitch McConnell says he's going to filibuster something, the fact of the matter is it will take a very long time to do.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, a lot of your members are running in very tough races. I wanted you to take a look. There's an interesting ad caught our eye. This is Earl Pomeroy, a Democrat from North Dakota. Take a look at some of this.
When George Bush proposed a Medicare prescription drug plan, Earl Pomeroy voted yes, putting seniors before party. Rick Berg would roll back prescription drug coverage.
That's right. It's a Democratic congressman talking about his relationship with George Bush. You also have Gene Taylor, a Democrat from Mississippi, saying he's not going to support Nancy Pelosi next year. What is going on in your ranks?
Well, as you know very well, the Democratic caucus is a ideologically diverse caucus. We don't have this narrow ideological purity test that the Republicans have and which the Tea Party is now imposing on all the Republican candidates that drives them very far to the right. So there are going to be some issues where our members of Congress, Democrats, support the president's position. There are going to be other occasions when they don't support the president's position. And it is reasonable for them to talk about those cases where they've been with the president on an issue or against the president on an issue. But I can tell you there's not a single Democrat out there who would have voted for the Republican budget last year, which ended Medicare as we know it. This is not a theoretical conversation. They voted on that issue. It would cut Medicare by 75% over a period of time, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, turn it into a voucher program and say to the seniors, hey, you're on your own, no more guaranteed coverage. That's not just what they've said they would do, they voted on that. And so our members are talking about how they're protecting Medicare out on the campaign trail.
We've been looking at the ads that have been running so far, and we have seen several ads from Democrats that mention the health care vote. But we have yet to find a single ad from a Democrat that mentions a vote in favor of the health care bill. Every ad we've seen are Democrats talking about how they opposed the Obama health care bill. Why is that? I mean, looking back, was that just a colossal political mistake, whatever the merits may be? Was it just a colossal political mistake that now you have not a single member that we can find anyway, Democrat, who supported that bill, willing to go out there and tout their vote in a political ad in this campaign?
Well, first of all, there are members out there touting that vote. I mean, many members of the caucus. I'm running for re-election. I've talked about that provision. Cedric Richmond is a challenger down in Louisiana. No, but so now you're talking about.
We haven't seen it in an ad yet. We haven't seen it in an ad, right?
But well, there are people who are doing literature, and there are other ways to reach people. And I think that, given the fact that we just saw last Thursday, we passed the 6-month mark when many of these new important rights are going to affect for the American people. For example, making sure that their kids aren't denied insurance coverage because they have a pre-existing condition like asthma or diabetes, or making sure their kids can now stay on their insurance policies till they're age 26. Those are important things. So our members are talking about those things on the campaign trail. But the most important thing they're talking about is what's on most people's minds, which is jobs in the economy, and making it very clear that it would be a big mistake to go back to the policies that got us into this mess to begin with, including the tax provisions, these very perverse tax provisions that actually reward multinational corporations that ship jobs overseas. So our members are talking about jobs and the economy as the #1 issue.
Okay, Congressman, we're out of time, but before you leave, we want your number. What's it looking like today?
The momentum is picking up, the energy gap is closing, and the Democrats will retain a majority in the House because the American people do not want to go back to the failed policies of the past. That is very clear, and the Republican so-called pledge, it turns out it was just a Xerox copy of all the old Bush policies. They slapped another new fancy cover on top, and I don't think anyone's going to be fooled by that.
But a number, how many seats the Democrats lose?
I'm not making any predictions. I know people have been in the predictions of business in the past, and they're often wrong.
Okay, all right.
Including Karl Rove, who predicted a permanent Republican majority. You remember that
Yes,
one?
yes, I remember it well. All right, Chris Van Hollen, thank you very much.
Thank you.